Back to the late game episode 38. I am Lycan. With me, I have co-host In Control and Destiny, and joining us, Beastie Cutie from the first segment, and Mr. Ryan Morrison. You might know him as the video game attorney off of Reddit. He's done several AMAs in the, I think you do a weekly AMA, as we said, in the game dev subreddit, correct?
Right, yeah,
In the,
mostly weekly.
yep. And then I first heard about you when you did your big AMA on the regular AMA board. So it's good to have you here. We're going to talk about the drug testing in esports. We're going to discuss that a little bit. We've talked about it for the past 2 weeks, and I thought, it would be a great opportunity for us to have you come on and kind of get your perception of, what that movement is going to, how that's going to play into esports in the future. And then giving our viewers a chance to take advantage of you being here. They have been asking credit questions. I have them coming in through Skype on my other computer. We'll go through those. And a blanket statement right now for everyone. He cannot answer specific legal questions. He can just give general guidance. So the example he has given is, you want to say, does this specific item, am I infringing on copyright? No, he can't. But he can kind of give you an idea of what would be infringing copyrights. That sort
Yeah,
of thing.
it's a ridiculous rule, but it's our ethics board. I can only answer general stuff, so you don't rely on this as legal advice. It has to be said, unfortunately.
Yep. So, real quick before we kick off the discussion, you want to give them your background, I guess, in your just legal background, and then what you've been doing with video games?
Sure, so I run my own firm. We deal basically exclusively with video games and esports. About 99% of our clients are that. I do represent a can opener company, so that's the one outlier. But basically, we work with. It was a lot of indies and startups. Now I've worked with companies like GOG and some of the bigger names out there. But the in the esports world, I've represented or at least worked with a lot of the top players, mostly in Dota, but throughout most games at this point. And I just have before I opened any of this, I was a fan. I was a player, and I've always been, just an overall nerd with this stuff. So I'm no stranger to the community, and I am lucky to be one of maybe 3 attorneys on the planet that really focus and work in esports. The only other one I know of off the top of my head is Bryce Bloom in Seattle, and I kind of hold down on the East Coast. So we do a lot of the American esports work and video game studio work. So it's a fun profession to be in.
Cool. Awesome. So, how much of the ESL stuff have you followed as far as the drug testing?
Quite a bit. I was quoted in a couple articles for it, and it's been. I mean, it's something I'm certainly in favor of. I actually, before I was an attorney, I used to work with the New York Times, and I did a lot of research with the journalist Alan Schwartz on Adderall abuse. So this is something that kind of merged those two worlds, and something I'm decently familiar with.
Okay, so one concern for a lot of people is player rights. Something that is, I think, is going to be asked a few times by some of these questions is regarding false positives, and what kind of precedent is this going to set when there is no representation for these players?
Well, so when you say no representation, it's important to remember that these guys don't have representation at any point. So a lot of the journalists, and not in an offensive way, I'm not trying to attack you guys or anything, but a lot of guys are now picking up on this fact with this, that all of a sudden there's a privacy issue potentially, all of a sudden there's all this these questions about no representation, not having any kind of appeal process. But you have to remember that this exists going back to when they're actually not signing the contracts that don't exist before they join teams, or when they're not getting paid by people. It's the entire industry from game to game to game. Only the super upper echelons of players and teams have representation. A lot of the teams tell players not to get representation. So when you see a league like this starting the drug test, it's something that, while I'm in favor of this specific thing, it's something that definitely sets a precedent that the leagues are just going to basically do whatever they want because the players have no recourse. It's do this or leave. It's not something they can argue with. It's not something they can band together with, because there is no union. There is no collective bargaining agreement. There's nothing that you might see in other sports. So this is instead just completely, a couple angry players and a couple players who might not dabble in it and don't care. And it's just there's certainly no organized protest here that I'm aware of.
All right, from the organizer's perspective, is there anything they're at risk for? Anything they need to be concerned about when going through with this?
Well, so it's not that it morally and legally maybe two different worlds. It's the same with the NFL when they test for Adderall and things like that. Is Adderall? It's a class 2 controlled substance. It's certainly illegal to abuse and take without a prescription. But I know from my time with the Times that you can just go get a prescription. It's not something very difficult to go get prescribed. It's definitely something that I think they should be obligated to test for and really make sure that is being controlled properly. From a moral standpoint, from a legal standpoint, they're probably not going to be too screwed because they write their own rules. Like I said, there is no CBA. There is no one saying, hey, you can't pay out this prize pool a certain way just because somebody was on Adderall. The only hiccup that would say that is that with these tournaments, there's going to be every state has its own rules. Every country has its own rules. So there are states and countries that are going to say, well, if you're using illegal substances or knowingly allowing these players to use illegal substances, you're setting yourself up for not only major fines, but possible disbandment of the tournament or a refund of the money or God knows what other penalties. It's definitely something that they're just trying to be preventative with because there are not a lot of esports leagues. There's a lot of esports tournaments or different games that might host tournaments or playoff series or whatever there may be, but there's not a lot of actual leagues. So these guys are just, they're in the foreground and having to take preventative steps that others might not have even thought of.
And that's actually a pretty interesting aspect because I hadn't heard a lot of that. I've heard a lot about the players and all that stuff, but from the legal perspective of what the tournament has to worry about.
And I apologize, I'm in New York, so we're gonna get sirens.
No worries. Beastie, as a player, someone that's attended tournaments and all that, how does it make you feel with regard to the testing?
I mean, I don't care because, I'm not using anything, but I think it's definitely an advantage to the players that are. I heard stories, this is back in like 2011, that players, a lot of players use Adderall. I don't know if they use, other things, but it probably helps a lot with StarCraft, especially, just the pressure, the focus, playing in front of the audience. So I think it is an unfair advantage, but they should probably start doing the tests, in my opinion. If the tournament is big enough, not obviously for like
the
small
Lycan
things,
League or something like that. Yeah.
But if it's a major tournament, I think they should start doing it.
Okay. Jeff, Destiny, BC, any of you guys, before we go into the other questions, I'm glad we could get your input on this, Ryan. Do you guys have any questions for him? Just it doesn't necessarily have to be drug testing. It could just be anything esports related.
What do you think about throwing marijuana? This is the same people that decided to throw marijuana testing onto it too, right?
Yes.
What's up with that? It seems like a kind of a spooky precedent.
Yeah, I mean, especially for the community, from at least the guys I know. It's the way it's going, though. If esports wants to be legitimate in the sporting community, it's going to have to start following a lot of the things that the NBA, the NFL, the MLB does, and part of that is drug testing.
And they test for just like marijuana?
I mean, not just, but it's certainly part of, and even in states where a team might be, let's say the NFL, a team might be in a state where marijuana is legal, doesn't matter. The league doesn't allow it. So they can still get fined or banned or kicked out. There's not going to be criminal charges if ever. It's just that's not going to happen from these drug tests in no matter what league it is. But you'll certainly be punished within the league. And the scary part with esports right now is since there are no collective bargaining agreements, no unions, no one looking out for the players, the punishment can be whatever they want. You might win the international in Dota, they drug test you, and they just say, that's it, we're keeping the money. And you don't have any kind of recourse. It
seems really weird because I don't know, like the idea that there have been so many scandals, and I'm sorry, I understand you have more of a background, but like that idea that like in order for esports to be taken seriously, like didn't we just have this issue in the United States where they're about to revoke like all sorts of records and whatnot because of steroid usage in Major League Baseball, and then there was the whole thing with like the with all the bikers that were roiding too. Like it seems like drug use is pretty rampant in like every other single sport. Like almost like knowingly. I don't know, I'm not sure how old you are, but you remember like what was it, like 10, 15 years ago? And like it was like Sammy Sosa and who was the other guy who was competing for like most home runs in the season?
Mike Piazza, or Sammy Barry Bonds.
Was it Barry? No, it was Sammy Sosa and I don't remember the guy. but it was like well understood that every single person knew, like, okay, well, these guys are roiding like motherfuckers. Like, everybody knew it. Like, it was like the most open secret
they
ever.
knew it.
Not Mike
publicly,
Piazza.
maybe,
It was the St. Louis Cardinals player. What was his name?
Oh, Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa.
I don't know why I
right.
was saying Piazza. Yeah, McGuire. It's been a while, but yeah, I mean, they knew it was happening, and so what was the answer there? They started testing. They've gotten it. I mean, you can argue whether they have or not, but they've certainly tried to get it out of baseball. And esports is doing the same right now. Everyone knows most of the top players in esports are taking Adderall. It's not. I mean, you guys are some of the players, so you might deny that, but I mean, it's certainly no secret in the guys I work with or talk to that it's a known and popular theory that most of the top players in most top esports take Adderall. So it's the same as that home run competition back then. Everyone knew they were on steroids, so the answer was to start testing for steroids and get it out of the sport. Now everyone's abusing another drug, so the answer is to test for it and get it out of the sport.
So my question is, what about those who actually need Adderall?
Well, that's certainly the question, because I have no problem saying very adamantly that I think it should be tested for and taken out of when it's being abused. The other side of that is there are some people with legitimate prescriptions. Again, just because I have such a background in this, I know how easy it is to go to a doctor known for giving a prescription and getting a prescription. If they say Adderall is going to be allowed in esports if you have a prescription, every single top player is going to suddenly have a prescription. So it's you know, and I know there's a lot of defenders out there that actually have it and actually need it, but that doesn't change the fact that the doctors will hand it out completely willy-nilly. So I suppose the best answer is...
But there's no answer for that, and it's just always...
Right.
That's real life. Like,
totally.
If I have bad asthma, I can go to a doctor and get steroids as well. Obviously not on the same level as Barry Bonds, where his head expands, but I can still get steroids. Like...
Yeah, my grandma could get narcotics and shit very easily too. Just being
at
old
least
and
there'll be some form of a check, and there'll be like a chance that there's a doctor that sits in front of him and goes, "No, you don't need that much of a dosage," or, you know, you've used up your fill already. Like, what's going on? It seems like you're taking more than you should. Like, at least there's some level.
I actually just figured it out. I just came up with the best answer possible. We get a league-sponsored doctor who gives an unbiased analysis of everyone. So you can go get your own prescription for your own personal use, fine. But if you want to use Adderall while playing competitive esports, you have to go to this specific doctor who does
but that's
all
like
the
a
players.
Recipe for disaster. Who decides the doctor, the players, or the union?
The league decides everything else. They might as well. I mean, there is no union.
Yeah, not the union, but I meant the league. Yeah, but so like you could see you could run into problems there, right? Like a guy might be able to get a legitimate Adderall prescription, and then he goes to the league doctor, and the league doctor's like, well, no, fuck you or whatever, because the league doctor's going to have the league's interests at heart, right? Especially being hired by the league.
The interests aren't anti-Adderall; they're anti-Adderall abuse. So if you go to this league doctor, he's going to ideally be unbiased, and it's going to be the same as the NFL with concussions, where you have to go to the NFL's doctor to get passed for your concussion. You can't. The team doctors used to just immediately sign off that the guy was okay to go back on the field. The NFL doesn't do that anymore. You have to go to an unbiased doctor. So I think that's really the best answer here, where you go to someone saying, you know, we're going to test every top player in this game, and if you have ADD and need this to function, fine. I can't think of a better solution right now on the top of my head, but it does need to be tested. Sorry.
No, I get it. I like the sentiment behind it. I kind of also agree with Destiny when, you know, the guy who's signing the paycheck for that doctor, it can always have sway on the doctor, right?
Totally.
Because it's very hard to empirically say this is too much. When you have a concussion, there's no debate about concussion. There's no question about it. Oh, we did the scan. You have a concussion. You can't play. Period. End of story. When it comes to Adderall, though, there are people that are not as prevalent, but there are people that kind of like anti-vaxxers that are like, oh no, that's bullshit. Adderall is bullshit. ADHD is bullshit, and we don't need it. So,
well, I don't think anybody with like a medical degree would go.
No. But I'm talking about the league, right? So when he made the comment that the league wouldn't have their anti-Adderall abuse, not anti-Adderall, there could always be that one league runner who's like,
all right. You got it. You drew your point. So like on the flip side, then, are you just saying what? You don't want to test for anything because of the odd? Because like, let's be honest, of the people taking Adderall, by the way, of the top players, I would venture a guess 1% of them actually take Adderall for medicinal purposes, like they actually have ADD and cannot.
And I agree with that 1,000% based off just not confidential knowledge that I'm sharing, but just personal anecdotes.
So are you guys fighting for that 1%er right now, and everybody else is the man, or are you just shooting down ideas?
I agree with you, and I agree with him, and but I'm not Switzerland because I have thoughts behind my ideas, right? So That made no sense. The point I'm making is that
Are you saying Switzerland doesn't have thoughts behind their ideas?
no, what I mean is no. So what ESL is doing right now, first of all, I don't mind if the other doctor does it, but I like ESL's policy right now, which is if you have a prescription, get it. And I don't mind ESL saying, hey, we want our doctor to review it and all that to make sure there's no abuse, there's no, to do whatever they can. So no, I completely agree. There should be some sort of check in there other than just a prescription, because you're kind of encouraging people to get a prescription when you're like, oh, well, okay, I guess I'll go to America and get a prescription, or, however they decide to do it. Because I know America is one of the, I don't know what other countries are like, but I know here it's very easy to go get it and be done with it. So yeah, I think there should be checks. And I kind of like ESL's policy now, which doesn't rule out those who need it. It forces you to go get that prescription. And I mean, Adderall's not cheap. So, people decide, oh, well, I'm going to go get Adderall and start doing it. Oh, I don't see it being too much of a problem amongst the StarCraft community.
To me, I think, I don't disagree with your points, by the way, as far, you're all correct. And I agree with everything. To me, it just kind of gets distilled into, with that being said, I think we can all generally agree, regulated or not regulated, there's going to be problems. Regulated, it has problems with bias, and now people are still just going to get subscriptions, which are easily available, but we could all agree still less available than people not having to get subscriptions because they're not being checked. Okay, to me, the unique argument that comes from this that I think is potentially very dangerous, and Ryan has touched on this several times, and the first time we talked about this, I mentioned it too, players have no protection whatsoever, and this all could transform into a giant commercial for Mr. Morrison, because if you... you have a lawyer. Anyways.
That's why I'm here.
Exactly. No, but joking aside, I'm more I don't fucking, okay, they get a prescription, one doctor for ESL is sitting in the back room going, I've okayed 15 people and our secret verified number is 15, the 16th is bone. 16 kid walks in and he's like, hey, I'm here to look for, the Adderall, and they're like, he's like, clearly you don't need it, get out. That story has less of a sob story to me than the player who fucking sits there, pops positive, without having ever taken Adderall or anything like it, and the league looks at him and goes, you're out of this league, you're banned for the year, and we're going to ask your team to fine you $1,000, which you don't actually make because you're, a pro gamer on the lower level of the tree. And then that player's like, whoa, hey, whoa, I don't know how this happened. And then they're like, we don't fucking care. This is how you're banned. We're going to announce it tomorrow. Actually, it's already up on our Twitter, and you're sunk. And then that's, really scary and disturbing to me. And that's the only reason I would ever be 51% in favor of them not doing this, is because of the crude, unregulated nature of this thing being very weighted to the one side that will have legal representation and the power, which is the league, versus the player, which will have no defense whatsoever and is at the mercy of a system that is well documented as being, it's not perfect. We can just agree on that. It's not not perfect by a 3% error of margin. It's 15, 20% actually, so stuff pops up. So it's not very good in that sense.
Ryan, I have a question for you going off the back of what Jeff just said, because I really like his point. Do you have any, now that you've been involved with this and you followed it, do you know what the percentage of error is on drug tests like this?
Oh, I actually don't know off the top of my head, and the numbers I've heard are very contradictory. So it depends who you're asking, basically. But I don't know any official study that I trust off the top of my head. No.
Okay. So with that, one other point I guess I'd say is, well, we don't know the numbers. You also have to think that there would be human error and kind of stuff like that. So if each league is doing their own drug test, they bring their own contracting company to come in, take your piss, and go and do their things with it. There's no regulation. I imagine the NFL has a regulation for how every
and the reason that is because the NFL has a players union, and the NFL has collective bargaining agreements, and the NFL has lawyers representing the players. Esports is
and agents
agents. Esports is so alone on an island where they are making money that a legitimate athletic competition and leagues do, but there's absolutely no representation on the player side, to the point where the teams are actually illegally telling players not to get lawyers. I've offered free help to some of these guys, and they say, oh, no, I can't do it. My owner said I'm off the team if I talk to a lawyer. That's literally illegal, but they do it. They're signing contracts with clauses that are completely ridiculous and unconscionable. They're signing non-competes in California when California has basically said non-competes do not exist here. I shared that with a couple of the top Dota players, and all of a sudden the great shuffling happened last year, where they all realized they weren't locked into these terrible contracts. So it's it's coming. The players are going to get attorneys. They're going to start working with, from Ultra David to me to Bryce to whoever. They're going to start getting their contracts looked at, and they're going to start being represented properly. But it's not there yet. They don't want to spend any of their money on an attorney. To combat that, offer a lot of pro bono help. And I was just on the League of Legends subreddit, which I am a Dota fanatic, and my feelings for League are obvious, but I still went on there just to offer the help. I mean, these guys need their stuff looked at. They need someone in their corner negotiating things. There's one talent agency, and they're run by, in my opinion, so it's not a defamation lawsuit, criminals. I mean, they're taking 30% for doing nothing. It's absolutely ridiculous. There's no proper agents in this field, and it's ludicrous. It's something that needs to be fixed, and I don't see it happening anytime soon because
Well, on
there
this,
is no
can you
push.
be a little bit more specific? Because I actually know of a couple agencies, 2.
Oh, well, the one that was bought by William Morris, GEM. I mean, they're not liked by many of the business side of this industry because they don't feel they're setting a very nice precedent. They're taking a lot of money and not doing a lot of work, from what I've been told. I don't work with GM. I don't know anybody there personally, but through the grapevine, and in my opinion, that's what I've heard. It's certainly not something I'm a fan of how it's happening. And I think before agents even get involved, more attorneys do. And I know that sounds like a commercial for myself, but it's really not. It's just something where, I'm fine. I can keep the lights on here. I have a lot of great video game developer clients, and that's really my main wheelhouse. In esports, I offer so much pro bono help just because it's painstaking how this industry could be doing and how it is doing, because the leagues care about making a quick buck instead of putting esports up higher where it should be. And that's especially true in the top 3 ranking games on Twitch right now. A proper union with the players, or a proper even just represented players, would mean more team loyalty. It would mean more mutual beneficial growth instead of the team winning a big payout and disappearing. I can't tell you how many players come to me because they won a tournament and their owner just disappeared, or he dissolved the company and took the money. And all of a sudden, this mid-level player who should have been completely well-known and on the pro scene right now is broke and having to move back home because his owner disappeared with the $100,000 he won. It's not something that happens once a year. It's something that happens once a month, maybe once a week. It's gross, and it's constant. And it's because they're told they're not allowed to get an attorney, or they're afraid to get an attorney because they're younger kids and they think it's bad stigma to go talk to an attorney. That's why we do these AMAs, and that's why we go out and talk to everybody. It's not. I mean, we don't. You pay an attorney to be an asshole for you, not to you. And a lot of times you pay an attorney to nicely negotiate for you. I have a very good relationship with most of the team owners because the top level guys do have a mutually beneficial relationship. They want the players signed to a good contract where that player wants to make the team better and that team wants to make the player better. And that's how you grow together. That's how you make your money. It doesn't have to be so combative. It doesn't have to be so money grubbing and malicious the way it is right now. But it'll change. It's just changing very slowly.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for the rant.
No, it's good to go. Anyone have another question before we move on to his direct questioning session from the Reddit questions?
And I didn't mean there was 100K winnings a week, because I see Twitch is going crazy about that. I meant there's winnings stolen every week.
I've learned that the best thing you can do is not pay attention.
Ignore
to
Twitch
that.
chat.
I love every single one of them in there, but if I do, I start getting distracted and more than I normally do.
I do the AMAs. I learned to try to ignore the trolls, but
gotta look out for those COD codes. I mean, how are you supposed to?
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we're gonna now move into. Let me rename this, and we're gonna call it Video Game Attorney QA. I'm pretty excited for this segment because it's we don't do too many segments. We usually just go through the topics, get things done, and then wrap it up. But this is kind of cool and unique. So let's jump right in. These have been vetted, so I'm gonna trust them and just read them off. Esports has had a lot of situations where money is promised but never delivered upon. At what point would you say it may be worthwhile to pursue legal actions? I assume this also heavily varies depending on the country of both parties as well as many other factors. Keeping this intentionally vague so you can explain the it depends.
Yeah, so that goes off a lot of what I was saying before, where the owners do steal money or just don't pay out properly. They'll start saying things like, "Oh, well, we have this expense, and this expense. We're taking it out of your winnings, even though we had never discussed this. Even so, though we said we're going to pay for travel. Turns out that you wanted a nicer flight than we wanted, so we're going to take off half of this." You know, it's a lot of things that are certainly not allowed, but they do it anyway. And by the time the player comes to me, it's usually too late in the sense that not the statute of limitations have disappeared, but that owner's long gone. He went back to whatever country he's from with the money he took from his 6 different organizations and is gone. The more higher tiered teams that don't disappear and don't dissolve and might just have money disputes, which certainly exists. I mean, that happens on the top teams in the world. That's when you can start having a more actual legal conversation with them and an actual negotiation. And it's not going to wind up in court. 5.5% of cases ever wind up in court. It's just something where the 2 attorneys, the team's attorney and myself, will negotiate and come to an understanding of who's owed what and make it so everybody's happy. And only in the rarest of situations would we wind up in a courtroom. But that is the last straw there. Certainly being in another country makes that more difficult. It can cost you tens of thousands of dollars just to figure out jurisdictional issues if they're in a country that doesn't have a very American-friendly legal system or a friendly legal system to whatever was home to that tournament. But, you know, it's the kind of thing that is happening and does happen, and these teams are starting to play ball a little bit more or have attorneys that at least understand esports a little better, like myself and Bryce, who work with these teams that set up structures where it's not a question of who's owed what after this. We incorporate Twitch stream earnings into the contract. We know that these are things to work out with net revenue that, you know, an attorney who does wills normally, or even who does entertainment normally, never heard of Twitch. So he doesn't know that you get paid from this. He doesn't know you get YouTube money from your VODs and things like that. So that's all stuff that needs to be in the contract. And now that it is starting to be in the contract, it's, you know, it's causing less headaches at the top level, which is what I mean when I say it's changing, but changing slowly.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Next question. I just sent you an image. For those watching, the image is the imager, or whatever you call it. It's the stuff that Nicholas Chuswa made with the sushi, Zerg, and all that.
Wait, so where's this image at?
I'll link it to you. There you go. It's in the group chat. So anyway, the question is, how does parody work when interacting with copywritten video game material? For example, if you were to take several characters, or in this instance, units, and create a sushi version of Zerg, would that be something you could legally get away with selling on shirts?
So first off, I love it. Second, and more importantly, it's an interesting question. The parody and fair use are things that definitely exist, but they don't really exist for you guys or game developers or anyone that doesn't have 6 figures to blow in a legal battle whenever they want. So nothing is fair use and nothing is parody unless a judge says it is. So it's not an automatic right. It's not an automatic anything. It's a defense, which means someone's already sued you. You're gone to court. You need to hire expert witnesses that cost $50,000 each. And you have to prove in court that your Zerg sushi doesn't do any damage to Blizzard because no one would think that that's from Blizzard. Which, again, you might not win that. To win a parody case or to rely on parody, you really need to be something like Family Guy or South Park, where people know the source, they know it's a joke, and that's your major argument, that no one who watches Family Guy thinks that these things being parodied are from those sources. However, if I saw that Zerg sushi shirt, I might think Blizzard made it as a joke to be funny. And that's the unfortunate gray line difference there, but it's just how it is.
But in gaming, that's a lot of times too where they do step in. Like if you take Blizzard has defended like the Space Marine and stuff. Well, anyways, if you take their image and you try to make money off of it, and it's too close, and obviously like you're leveraging StarCraft, that is oftentimes when they do step in, and they will. And they've almost never, by the way, been like, "You're sued. We want $1 million." It's usually like, stop, take it down. It's not yours to do that. And then if they're like, no, I made $45, I'm going to make $100 more. And then they're like, all right, well, we're going to have it shut down. And then it is shut down. And then it's usually on you to be like, all right, Blizzard, I didn't want to do this, but my dad is the Kardashian family, da, 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 and then you like bring him to court, and then you go to war, and that's never happened with that I can think of. Like if it has, it's been very quiet in small courtrooms where the person got utterly crushed and defeated, and then was recycled out into the world.
Yeah, the only thing to add to that is basically it doesn't matter if you charge in a infringement sense. Making your stuff free definitely helps in your fair use argument, but it's still infringing material even if it's free, even if you don't charge for your game, even if you don't charge for your t-shirts, whatever, it's still infringing on its face. What you said about Blizzard kind of working it out with you before they sue you, that's absolutely true 99% of the time. They don't owe you a cease and desist letter, but they'll usually give you a cease and desist letter. The hiccup there is not everybody's Blizzard, and sometimes you infringe on other companies or games that are a lot less friendly, and they'll send you a cease and desist also with a demand for $50,000.
Yeah.
And normally, your attorney will get that negotiated down to maybe $20,000, but you're still screwed there, and that's potentially life-ruining and terrible.
You know who's famous for that, by the way, is Bruce Buffer. Like, if Destiny randomly right now were to give his little, like in the same cadence speech thing that he does at the beginning of all terrible fighting, acting, drama things, he's actually very famous for eventually finding that and sending you a check. Or not a check, excuse me.
Not
a request for a check that says
right.
You owe me about $50,000 to $100,000 because you just did my thing. That is trademarked. He had a trademark.
And then the follow-up to that is when you send them the check, the oh crap, I'm sorry, I screwed up check, you also have to sign a non-disclosure agreement that doesn't let you talk to the media about it, doesn't let you tweet about it, and that's why we never hear about all these things. But yeah. I promise they happen. There are a lot of people who make something that they think is funny. They make a Stormtrooper t-shirt, or they make a video game with their own version of the Zerglings, but it's Farmville now, whatever. It happens, and it's not something you want to be on the other side of. Stick to your own IP.
But that's why it's funny too, is because it's such a sticky place, because so much of gaming is actually a concept, idea, or whatever being reskinned and done slightly differently for usually a little bit less the cost over and over and over again. And all of that could be argued as exactly what we're talking about.
But a lot of that work comes out of the use of engines that are actually licensed, like under like general use or whatever. Like if you're talking about like mods and shit that whatnot, usually there are specific licensing agreements that the companies will set up for people to use those materials. Usually,
yeah,
not to say that it never happens.
I was speaking in general terms. I'm not saying that this is uniquely hypocritical. What I'm saying is that it's kind of how it's like it is either a hot button topic where people come down on you, from the people that have been doing this to other people in a different way that is legal, but still hilarious. Like,
theoretically, could you argue, I don't know how familiar you are with the StarCraft 2 scene, but if somebody wanted to ruin, I feel bad for even saying this, not that I would ever want this, but like, could companies go after Tempo for all the work that he does with his parody songs and argue none of this is fair use, you need to remove everything and give it and pay us like for all the money?
Yeah, 100%. They wouldn't, because he brings a lot of people back to the scene or keeps people reminded or refreshed of it. You might hear the song and open the thing. But if Joe Schmo starts doing what he's doing, Blizzard might say that's enough of that. There's already a guy doing that. I'm sure at this point.
No, I'm not even talking about Blizzard. I'm talking about the production companies that own the rights to the songs that he parodies with his StarCraft videos.
Yeah. Then absolutely. The number one way, and I'm sure you guys know this as streamers, the number one way to get your stream taken down or your VOD temporarily muted is by using music you don't own.
Wait, unless I don't understand it correctly, I thought Weird Al is allowed to make his parody songs and he doesn't owe anyone a dime. He only asked. I read an article that he only asked permission out of courtesy.
So it's the same argument there as what I said about Family Guy earlier, where Weird Al makes parodies, and now at this point Tempo does parodies, or Perion Flax in Dota, or whoever you want to talk about. Once you become a quote-unquote personality that does this, you have a much, much safer time doing it. When you're just starting out, you're really playing with fire if you don't have a license or an agreement to what you're doing. And Weird Al did get everything signed in agreements early on. Not that I'm a Weird Al fanatic, but I just know that his early stuff was all properly licensed and was all agreed to.
Okay.
And that's just unfortunately how it works. I don't agree with everything about that, of course, but I don't have to love all the laws to advise properly on it. It's
okay.
is how it is.
So I think that was a pretty solid answer for that one. We're gonna rock it through the next few. The video game attorney. What is the sketchiest thing a team or sponsor has done that you can describe without breaching people's privacy?
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely telling a player he can't talk to an attorney. You're right with everything you're doing in America is to talk to an attorney. A judge will throw out a contract as unconscionable if you were signed under duress, which means you were not. I mean, it doesn't only mean that, but one kind of duress is not being allowed to talk to an attorney. You're being kind of forced into an agreement. It's something that happens a lot more than I am proud to say still happens in this scene, since I am one of those attorneys kind of being shoved out of the room in some cases. But it's there's enough people hungry to play esports competitively that if you don't want to play ball unless you are, one of the top dogs, they'll just kick you out and get another one that will sign the agreement. And again, I hate repeating myself, but it is something that's changing, but changing slowly. And the top teams have stopped with such ridiculous threats because they've brought on attorneys themselves, and it's not just people getting templates off Google anymore that wouldn't hold up anyway. But it's being fixed slowly. So we are seeing more attorneys involved, but that's definitely the sketchiest thing, other than just straight up. I don't want to name any names, but there was a player who won a lot of money in a tournament and was in the country on a visa, work visa with his team. After he won the money, the owner of the team revoked his visa, took the money, and had him deported. So that's probably the most specific sketchy thing.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And that was resolved with an NDA, so you won't read an article about that either.
Damn.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah.
All right.
Unless Richard Lewis gets on the job.
All right. Can an automatic pay-in tournament work? And what are possible legal ramifications of having tournaments that require a pay-in?
So this is, I get asked this a lot. Somebody owns a bar, they own a video game store, and they want to host a tournament. The legal answer, and as your fake attorney for the day, versus the real world answer. The real world answer is if you're doing a $5 Mario Kart tournament at your dorm room, you're probably fine. The real world answer is that this is potentially gambling, and gambling is one of the only things that gamers can screw up on that results in potential real jail time. So it's not something you want to mess around with a lot, or at all if we're doing actual legal advice, which we're not. Disclaimer. But for about $5,000 through not me, but another law firm that really focuses and specializes on tournament rules that I put all that work to, and I don't trust anyone else with it. You'll get something that's very 50-state compliant that allows you to have these tournaments within America. It's going to be a little bit more per country depending on how you want to set it up. But every state, unfortunately, has their own tournament rules, their own gambling rules, their own what is gambling definition. And that's going to make your tournament rules a big headache and a huge potential risk if you don't do it right. The nice thing is you do it once for $4,000 or $5,000, and it's much cheaper to upkeep as you go.
Okay. I think two of these questions were already addressed previously in our discussion about the Adderall and the drugs. So that's actually going to wrap up the section of questions for you. We're going to now move real quick. We won't spend a lot of time on this subject, but I want to talk about the, how do you say his name, Jeff? Ai or Aoi 2000?
Owie.
Aoi, okay. So Aoi 2000, for those who don't know or don't follow Dota, Evil Geniuses won the TI. So before we talk about this stuff, how excited were you, Jeff?
Oh, it's incredible. It's one of the biggest accomplishments a team could possibly do, and
You think it's an accomplishment that EG kicked him off? You
we'll
disgusting
get,
fuck.
stop,
Go to Reddit,
stop,
boys.
Stop.
Oh,
We'll get there.
Steven was watching something else, guys. Can you update him real quick on the actual topic? But while he's doing that,
We will talk about that, but what we're going to talk about is how Jeff felt about his team winning.
I watch a lot of Dota, actually. I've never even played a single game, which is a unique experience for me in gaming. Any game I've ever watched, I always played as well, but this one, for whatever reason, I really enjoy watching and know that I don't have enough time to even remotely get involved. But I've watched all their, most of their games. It's impossible to watch all of anything all year long, and to see them overcome it. And actually knowing a little bit of, for me personally, it was cool too, which is actually funny with what we're about to talk about, but Zai and Arteezy originally left the team specifically because they were like, you guys are not going to win the International. We think this other team has what it takes to go win it. And then for them to recoup and rally around and still win it afterwards is actually a pretty fucking cool story. So it was very, very awesome.
All right, so now to get to the drama side of things, and I don't want to talk about this because it's a big dramatic topic. I'm very curious because I don't follow Dota that heavily, so I was kind of just upset for him as a person. And then I was reading, and it seems that he had he's a solid player, and he had a huge impact on Evil Geniuses winning. And as I think about it, it sounds like he was kicked. With as quickly as he was kicked, and Jeff, you can give some insight because you've been around the team, back end for so long. It sounds like this was already in the works, and it was like, regardless of what happens at the international, this is what we're doing. I know you can't speak for EG, but that was my perception of it. It wasn't just, okay, we just won and you did a great job, but I think it's time to kick your ass. So just regarding, I guess, the topic I want to go with is this kind of change in esports. We see this all the time in football, where people get moved around. Once their contract's up, they get moved. So Jeff, I guess from your end, whatever you're able to comment on or what you do want to comment on, I mean, how do you view this both as a player and someone who is, worked on the back end of a team?
Oh, it's heartbreaking to the umpteenth degree, and it's something that makes team sports, like, it's really cool for me to watch, but I know I couldn't be a part of it. The idea of, like, the other 4 guys coming to me and being like, yeah, we actually think this other guy's a lot better than you, and you're gone. And that guy's like, what? Like, yeah, it does happen in the NFL, and it's fucking amazingly hard to take there as well. But here in Dota, like, from what I understand, it was, Aoi was an integral part of their win, a huge part of their win, and is a fantastic player. And it's even more heartbreaking if you know that the same thing happened to him on Cloud9. And now on EG, after winning the biggest big tournament, it was inside of a week later, he's told, you're gone. Sorry, we think our team's even better with Arteezy. Which, if you know the Dota scene on paper, they probably, we'll see. I mean, time will tell, but they probably are. But it doesn't change the fact that it's incredibly heartbreaking for Aoi in particular, who's a super nice guy and also legitimately fucking amazing. But also the way it went down is pretty rough. And it was funny how many messages I got about this. They're like, oh, another classy move from EG. EG actually had nothing to fucking do with it, you guys. Like, Dota teams and CSGO teams, I would imagine as well, probably LoL teams, just team games in general, they're not like, Alex Garfield didn't swoop in and hand a pink slip to Aoi and was like, yo, I got bad news, you're out of here. It was actually PPD and the entire squad discussing this amongst themselves and making an autonomous decision. And to give you an idea of what I do know, and I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but actually, there's been a lot of shipments or movements in EG, particularly in these team games, where Alex was the last guy to find out and then was like, whoa, we have a contract with that person. And then they're like, well, I don't want to be in that contract. And Alex is like, I can enforce it. And they're like, don't, because I won't play. And then it's like, well, their hands are tied a lot of times in these team games because they're managed by the coach, the players, and then it gets to management. Where I don't agree with what went down is I do think EG should have, as an organization, come out with a message and said, like, hey, Aoi, thank you for your contributions. You're fucking amazing. We love you. I don't know for sure because I'm not in the office with the team and I'm not a part of these decisions, but my speculation would be that didn't happen because it could undercut the message from the captain of the Dota squad and the Dota squad in general. But if you look at the Dota scene, what ends up happening is Aoi's like, I fucking hate people, I'm off the team. PPD's like, yo, we discussed this, we think it's best. Arteezy saying, like, random 2 words and a curse word, Sumail retweeting, then, like, adding 2 curse words, and, like, that's Dota speak for how they talk, which is, like, juvenile and strangely delinquent in all the weird ways. And then there's, like, a hippo picture in the corner. But if you interpret all of it, it's very top-end competitors dealing with each other in a team sport environment where that's the brutality that occurs right and left, you guys. Like, those fucking teams, I don't have the heart for it. It's insane that it happens. All the shuffle people are talking about, it's not a shuffle. It's players getting notified that they are too fucking bad to be on their team and they're kicked off, finding another team and hopefully getting success or just disappearing.
Well, it's also a shuffle because I represented a couple of the players in the shuffle, and even on EG, in previous years, they've just kind of said, I don't want to play with this team anymore. I want to go do this or that or this. And, it's something that it is a team game, so they want to be with their friends, and they also want to be with who they think can win. So what happened here, I think, and just based on as much knowledge as I can talk about without saying anything confidential, it's very public that Zai and Arteezy on Team Secret are super best friends. Zai wanted to go back to school. Arteezy wanted to keep playing. EG makes a lot of money off Arteezy's name because Arteezy is easily the most popular player in Dota, and it just and Fear is contemplating retirement. Fear being one of the current better players on in the world, honestly, but on EG. Fear, instead of contemplating retirement, is going to move to support, and that opens up a spot for Arteezy to come carry and Aoi to get off the team. And it was amazing watching TI5 because he basically won the finals for them. He forced a Techies ban, who, if you guys don't play Dota, Techies is a joke hero basically, and he still made them respect ban him. It was mind blowing, and then to be kicked so quickly after. The only thing that makes sense is Zai's going back to school. They wanted Arteezy back on the team, and that there's just one unfortunate player, no matter how good he is, that he's got to go. But don't feel too bad.
Also, PPD said that he wanted to have more time to find a new team. If you believe that or not, it's up to you. But that was the message that went out.
I do believe that. I think as painful as it is to be kicked right after a win, I think it's the kinder option, because otherwise you're forced to scramble and get something before the rosters lock and before tournaments start. Now he has a lot more time, and he did, apparently. I'm not sure how official it is. I don't have any knowledge there, but I saw he tweeted out that he formed another team, and it's all locked, and he's looking good. So I wouldn't feel too bad for him. He's a millionaire and has another venture to go forward with.
Yeah.
I was watching the interview he did with Thorin, and one of the things he said was, that any kick from a team, being kicked period, at the very best is still going to be an 8 of 10 on the heartbreak scale of just how you're going to feel. So I definitely feel for the dude. And, if you look at the silver lining, he just won a ton of money, and he's going to, continue to do great things because he wasn't kicked for being shitty. So, and I'm glad that Evil Geniuses, the squad kicked him, quickly instead of, prolonging it until like the last minute, and then Arteezy gets to jump in, but he gets left in the dirt. Jeff, how do you feel about Arteezy coming back? I don't know if you knew Arthur or.
It's exciting. I don't know him as a person or anything like that, but like I said, I'm a fan of the game, and he's legitimately one of the superstars of the game. Like, he's just an incredible carry player. A lot of his heroes are the ones that get respect banned, but then he has like a deep 4 or 5. I call him like my MOBA jargon is fucked up, but anyways, what do they call him?
Yeah,
Not heroes.
They are heroes in Dota. Yeah.
Are they?
They're champions in League.
It just didn't sound right, but I guess heroes. Okay, but anyways, he's a superstar, and a lot of people are very excited about him and Sumail, and then of course, with that excitement comes the Reddit like TMZ, like how are they gonna get along? And I bet they're gonna have all this drama, and like. I just trust in ultimately PPD to know that A, that's a star-studded cast, but B, it has to work as a team, and Fear is up there too and helping in the decision-making, and they won the fucking International, and they're like one of the only mostly American teams to win something on that level, so I have and our tour, of course, is Canadian, but so North American, but very excited for the potential, and we'll see. It just feels weird, like this International was amazing, but it feels like the other one just happened. It's weird that it's like accelerating, and now they're talking about having Valve involved in like 4 major events a year or something like that. So the Hydra is growing.
Yeah. All right. And before we move on, because I'm hell bent on finishing the show before 6 o'clock. Do you guys have any final thoughts on the Aoi situation? Ryan?
It's gonna be fun to watch.
Destiny?
Nope.
Jeff? Beastie.
Nope.
Cool. Moving forward. Real quick, we'll just announce it because there's not really much to talk about. But if you didn't know, automated tournaments are coming. They're going to be patched in, I think, this week. I assume it's going to come with a bunch of other crap. But Blizzard released a post showing people how to sign up for the automated tournaments. And if you look at it, there's some screenshots of how it's going to work. I'm pretty excited. It's going to be fun. And, obviously, there are certain things we can't talk about. But let me just say that these things are going to be freaking awesome. They really are. And so let's move on now. I think we're done with topics. Let me give one real quick peek over the list, and then I think we'll be jumping into we will be jumping into the final questions. We're gonna get them done quick. Yep, that's it. All right, so going into questions.